Hi guys, welcome to my computer. On the screen here you see a sample test I took online that I want to share with you all. First off, let me introduce this exam by giving you an excerpt from the test makers here.
大家好，欢迎参加 HSK 一级考试。
大家好，欢迎参加 HSK 一级考试。
大家好，欢迎参加 HSK 一级考试。HSK 一级听力考试分4部分，共20题。请大家注意，听力考试现在开始。第一部分，一共5个题，每题听2次。例如，
很高兴，
很高兴。
Alright, so as you heard, the first portion is the listening portion. There are a total of 20 listening questions followed by 20 reading questions. In this particular exam, it starts off with 5. In the structure, it starts off with 5 questions in the listening portion, starting off with 2 sample questions. One key word that I want you guys to really keep in mind is 例如, which does not have Hanyu pinyin in this examination, unfortunately. Consistently, it will appear in each section just to get you guys a preview of how the questions work. But 例如 means for an example. So be sure to keep that in mind so you guys know what kind of questions are waiting for you in each section. So in this case, the woman in the recording said 例如高兴, and then she said it again, 高兴. She repeats it twice, giving you guys 2, not 1, chances to hear the question and make your best guess for the answer. In this case, you need to associate picture with the definition of 高兴. So what does 高兴 mean in Chinese? It means happy, right? Or excited. So does the picture match with this definition? It definitely does. So it would be true. You would put a check mark next to the box, next to the picture. Let's move on to the second example, or the second 例如.
看电影，
看电影。
So in this particular example, you hear a phrase rather than, an emotion or a word. There is a verb involved, so 看, which means to see or to watch. In this particular case, the picture in this example is of a man sitting on a bench and reading a newspaper, right? So reading would mean 看, but the question asked for 看电影, which means watch a movie. This does not match the picture, so you would put a cross or an X mark in the box next to this question picture. And everything else would follow suit. So after the examples, the rest of the 5 questions in this section will be the exact same question and answer structure. And then more instructions will be given for the following section. So let's check out the following section.
第2部分，一共5个题，每题听2次。例如，
这是我的书，
这是我的书。
Alright, so this is the second part of the listening portion. In this case, we only have one example. So, 例如这是我的书. And again, it is repeated twice, so guys, please make sure to take advantage of the repetition to make sure you hear the question clearly. In this case, you get multiple choice, and the surefire answer is one of these choices is correct. So, 这是我的书. Be sure to capture the noun or the object of the sentence, which is 书, which means books. So, which one of these pictures depicts books? By picture association, like in the previous section, it would be A. So in this case, you would put a check mark or circle. Use a check mark because that's how it looks in the sample for A. And everything else will follow suit. for 6, 7 through 10 of this section. Let's move on to the next section of the listening portion.
第3部分，一共5个题，每题听2次。例如，你好，
你好，很高兴认识你。
你好，
你好，很高兴认识你。
Alright, so welcome to section 3 of the listening portion of this exam. In this case, again, it's picture association, but instead of each picture having multiple choice, you would have multiple choice of each picture, and this group of questions below actually all use or all pull from the same pool of multiple choice questions. So for the first one, the first example, they said 你好 and then 你好，很高兴认识你. So this is a very, standard conversational dialogue. So which picture depicts this conversation best? Would it be A, B, C, D, E, or F? It would be C, because, you see a woman and a man shaking hands as if they just met, and, they probably exchange things like 很高兴认识你, which means it's very nice to meet you. So you put C as the best fit for that picture and for this dialogue that's given to you. And everything else will follow suit from 11 to 15. Pick the best picture for each question presented to you in the audio. And guys, please always make sure, I can't emphasize enough, to take advantage of the repetition, because you can't always catch everything on the first try, but it can be due to nervousness or anxiety for taking the test the first time, which is totally normal and natural, but make sure to catch it the second time so you hear things clearly. Let's move on to the next section.
第4部分，一共5个题，每题听2次。例如，
下午我去商店，我想买一些水果。
他下午去哪里？下午我去商店，我想买一些水果。他下午去哪里？
Alright, so welcome to the final and last portion of the listening portion, so the fourth one. In this case, you're lucky. You have 汉语拼音 listed in the example, so you know the conversation and dialogue that's presented in the example. And you also have 汉语拼音in the multiple choice below for your reference when you're answering these questions. So the first example that they gave to you is 下午我去商店，我想买一些水果. And the question they're asking you to answer is 他下午去哪里? So this will actually have to purely depend on your listening skills, right? Because you need to weed out the keywords, the key terms, and the objects in the dialogue or sentence that you've heard in the question. In this case, the correct answer is 商店, because like you said in the audio, 下午我去商店. So if you capture that detail, you will be able to answer this very clearly, because they usually just give you the answer in the audio. Just make sure that you remember that detail. And again, always listen to it twice. Don't tune out the second time they repeat the question. All right, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I will be moving on to the reading portion now, just to get you guys more familiar with the entirety of the test. Here is the first part of the reading portion. From 21 to 25, you see these pictures. Very much like the first part of the listening portion, you have this chart of pictures, and lucky for you, there's 汉语拼音 next to the vocabulary that they want you to identify with the picture. So the first one, the 例如, is a picture of a computer and the 汉语拼音 and character for 电视. They want you to know that 电视, or they want to test that 电视 and computer, are they the same thing? So if you can translate that picture to 电脑, that's perfect, because you know that it's false. 电视 is television and 电脑 is the picture, computer. So the answer would be a X mark. Moving on to the second example, it's a picture of a plane, right? And the word given to it is 飞机. Now, if you translate the picture from your vocabulary knowledge to 飞机, that is correct. So if that matches, put a check mark next to the picture. And that would follow suit for the rest of the questions. Next, for the next 5 questions, very similar format to that second portion of the listening portion as well. You see a group of 6 pictures and you have to match them with the sentences below. Lucky for you, every single character except for Li Ru in the example are pinyin, so you are able to read it and at least from your knowledge decipher what each sentence means or is defined based on your knowledge of pinyin and as well as your vocab. So for the Li Ru in this one, it's 我很喜欢这本书. So based on what you understand from this sentence, it means I really like this book. So out of all these 6 pictures, which one would best fit the meaning of this sentence? It would be E, right? Because it's a picture of a girl reading a book, so it would most fit this illustration. For the next 26 through 30, you would do the same thing. Obviously, you use process of elimination because it gets easier as you cross out which ones match which ones. And for the ones that you probably aren't too sure of, you can probably use process of elimination for the last 1 or 2, based on your confidence and your ability to kind of decipher what the sentences are. So my tip for this is always remember some vocabulary and always practice a lot of reading into the sentences, because this is really training your reading and your ability to comprehend the meaning of each sentence and associating them with the pictures presented to you. Moving on to the third part of the reading. Again, this is very text heavy. There are no longer any pictures, but worry not, there are Hanyu pinyin in each sentence and each answer. So for the first one, for the example, it says 你喝水了吗? 你喝水吗? So in this one, what would be the best response that makes sense to this question? If you look at the right side, it has A, B, C, D, E, F, each with an answer possible to this particular question. In this case, it would be F. 好的,谢谢, which means, okay, thank you. In this case, 你喝水吗 means, do you want water or do you want to drink water? F would make the most sense because the respondent would be, okay, thank you. So in this case, you can cross out F from your answer sheet and not worry about it anymore. So for 31 to 35, you only have to worry about which ones match B, C, D, E, and A. Moving on to the final portion of the reading exam. It's another 5 questions, also text heavy, but this time you have to match word and complete the sentence, which is, I think, one of the most challenging parts because you kind of have to capture the contextual clues in this case. In the example, you get 你叫什么 blank. In this case, of the 6 multiple choices presented to you, you have to pick one that best completes the sentence given. Lucky for you, again, each one is Hanyu pinyin, so you will be able to read out, at least in your head, what each choice sounds like. So, 例如,你叫什么? In this case, out of all 6 of these choices, D would make the most sense, which is 名字. The sentence would say, what is your name or what are you called? And although maybe in English that doesn't translate very well to an incomplete sentence, in Chinese it would be 你叫什么名字? What is your name? You would do the same for 36 through 40, which brings you to the conclusion of this test. And be sure to always double check your work as well, because you don't want to make any careless mistakes from misinterpreting any contextual clues or misinterpreting a picture. So make sure to check your work, listen to the audio at least twice when they're given twice, and reading always, look back and read through the sentences again, making sure the choices you chose best fit the question or the incomplete sentence. So that is actually it for the HSK Level 1 exam. Congratulations on making it to the end. I strongly suggest you, number one, always look at the example so you know a preview of each section. Number two, always listen to the recording twice when it's played twice so that you don't jump to any conclusions when you hear certain numbers or certain multiple choices. And three, always check your work. Never can be too careful when you're taking a proficiency test, especially in the beginner level in Chinese. It's a pretty difficult language, but it's really worthwhile. So thank you for listening.